Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online build video with me, Sherman. Today guys, we are taking a look at a brand new build. Something I've never tried to do in the past, I don't think. And that is a Necromancer healer. Now this is called the Black Death build. Really interesting. I do want to, or Blackdeath Acolyte. I do want to talk a little bit about where the idea came from. I was trying to think of how to make a kind of dark priest healer type person, and this is what came about. And I really like it. It's something that just really kind of grabs the attention of the upcoming Gates of Oblivion. The fact that they talk about Argonian, they showed Argonian stuff. They did show some Imperial stuff, but it's the fact that it's going to involve Argonians, and I thought this was a great addition. So the Black Death Acolyte is an Argonian Necromancer, 64 points into Magicka, 33k max Magicka, 24k health, 17k max stamina. We do have a 972 mag recovery with a 568 stamina recovery. Health recovery, not too worried about. That's fine. We do have a 2894 spell damage with a 50% spell crit. We do have a 1335 weapon damage with a 22% weapon crit. Now, I have been asked, and I want to clarify this. I have been asked why I, even in Magicka builds or even in Stamina builds, I say both things. And it's just because when I play the builds, I don't always use the same skills that you see on the toolbars. There's times where I might incorporate stamina skills or even Magicka skills on my stamina or mag characters. So, alright, moving on. We have 14k spell resist with a 14k physical resist. Now remember, 14602, 14326. We have higher spell than we do physical. That's good. And we also have a 1320 crit resist. Now moving on down here, we do have the Thief Mundus Stone to increase both spell and weapon critical. We have Major Prophecy at all times, increasing our spell crit extra over the Thief as well. We do have Major Sorcery at all times, which is also excellent for this. And then of course we are using Tri-Staff. Alright, now moving on to our food and potions. So I do want to point these Alliance spell drops out. These you get from doing PvP. They are excellent potions, and they're not too expensive, in my opinion. And they're a great way to get Major Sorcery, Major Prophecy, and that Major Intellect. Now, we're only using it for the Major Intellect, but if you wanted to change some things around, you could, and you could drop that Major Sorcery as well, but you lose some Max Magicka, and I don't think that would be necessary. Spell Power Pots, of course. And then a Tri-Stat food. Now, going over our sets, starting with our monster set, we are using Earthgore. It is a great healing set. So, one piece adds 4% healing done, added to the Argonian's natural healing done and healing received. That's an excellent combination. 2-piece, when you heal yourself or a group member that is under 50% health, you conjure a pool of quenching blood underneath them, immediately removing all previous enemy placed effects and healing the lowest health group member in the area for 36,000 health over 10 seconds. This effect can occur once every 20 seconds. Now, before I continue on with the sets, I want to be clear on something so people don't question why I chose these sets. So the next two sets really don't have a lot to do with healing. But you have to remember, a Dark Priest isn't going to be about healing. Their job is going to be about doing, like, being damage capable, but healing is something they do extra. So they're not good guys necessarily, but they'll do it because they want to, or not because they want to, but because they have to keep their group alive, kind of thing. So the next two sets kind of play into this more selfish type of gameplay. So Julianus is a set I love to use. on a lot of Magicka builds because, one, it's craftable, it's easy to get. There's not a lot of problems getting it for what it does. Now, the 2-piece adds spell crit, 3-piece max Magicka, 4-piece spell crit, and the 5-piece is also spell damage. So this is where the set really shines, is the fact that it gives you those 2 spell crit, the max Magicka, and that spell damage. Alright, moving on to the next set. And this is where we get our major sorcery. This is called Rattle Cage. Now, this is a heavy armor 5-piece set, but you can get it in the jewelry and weapons, and that's what we're using here. So if you look, the 2-piece adds max health, 3-piece spell damage, 4-piece spell damage, and the 5-piece even more spell damage. But we also get a bonus 5-piece, which gives us that major sorcery at all times, giving us that increased spell damage. So our spell damage is coming in at 2,300 almost right now, or 2,800 right now. When we're fully get all of our other stuff that gives us spell damage, we actually end up with a lot more. We end up with about almost 4K, I want to say, but you'll see. So, going over traits and enchants. With the helm, chest, and legs, again, we're using the tri-stat enchants, of course, to maximize our Magicka, but also to give us that extra health and stamina that allows our character to be a little bit more flexible in other areas, like having more stamina pools for blocking and dodge rolling, and more health for survivability. On the smaller pieces, we are using the 4 max Magicka. This is going to maximize our Magicka pool. And then going over traits, helm and the legs are invigorating, and then the chest is reinforced. The 4 smaller pieces, the boots, shoulders, belt, and gloves are all divines. And that's to maximize our Mundustone effect. Alright, now this is a 5-piece light setup, so we are running a helm, shoulders, gloves, belt, and boots. Those are your 5 light pieces. Your chest and your legs are light or medium and heavy, and this is going to allow you to have a more maximized resistance level in light armor. Pretty much the max you can get in light armor is to have a setup like this, where you craft a chest in heavy and medium legs and everything else is light. So that's why we have that. Now onto the jewelry. Of course, 2 pieces, the 2 rings are going to be Trirune with the spell damage. Trirune again maximizes Magicka, health, and stamina to give you that bigger pool. And it's really good for that higher spell damage on those enchants to just allow you to do more damage. Not just damage, but also more healing. Alright, moving on to the necklace. We are running a Bloodthirsty necklace. You can go infused here. I just go with the Bloodthirsty because I think it's kind of cool to get that extra spell damage when enemies are below 90% health, because it applies to not only your damage itself, but also applies to your healing. So it's really cool that the Bloodthirsty does that. A lot of people don't realize that it does do that. So, alright. And then moving on to our weapons. Now this is where things are going to get really questionable again, because we're not using any resto staves. We're using 2 ice staves. And this really plays into the build in a really unique way. Allows for a lot of interesting flexibility, but a lot of fun flexibility. So with the first ice staff, we have a infused weapon damage enchant, as you can see, and we will have this up pretty much non-stop. So you're going to get that increased weapon damage and spell damage by 452 for 5 seconds. It's actually going to get reapplied every 3 seconds, so it'll stay up longer and more effectively. On the back bar, we are using a weakening enchant. This reduces the weapon and spell damage of your enemies you're fighting by for 5 seconds by 452, and also an infused staff. So it's a really good combo for this setup, because you're getting a lot of spell damage anyways, and the more spell damage you get, the more damage you do. But not only does it allow you to do more damage, it allows you to do more powerful healing. So it's a really kind of productive healing, but in a selfish way. And it really plays into that more dark, evil kind of, like a priest. So let's move on now to the skills. And as always, I'm going to go over the skills. Instead of going over the toolbar, I'm just going to go over like unlocking the skills, the passives, and all that for your class. It's really important, guys, that you understand that even though you might not be able to use all the skills that you can unlock at any, like all the time, it's the fact that you can use them at different situational times that makes it important to do. Even your class passives, having them all unlocked, you never know, like, if you're going to use a skill in that line that could take benefit from that passive. So, again, it's a really important thing to do that. Same thing goes with your weapon passives. With this one, you're just using destruction staff, so getting those destruction staff passives and active abilities really play into your strengths of the build, because it allows you more skills again that you can use effectively. Armor skills, light armor, you're going to want to unlock all the passives. Medium armor, top 2, bottom 1. Heavy armor, the top 3. Now, somebody asked me why I unlocked the dexterity thing here, because it adds to your weapon crit. Again, you never know when you might need like that for a stamina-based skill that might heal or do something else that could apply to yourself doing damage or even healing or even protection. You never know. So, and then on the heavy armor, resolve, constitution, and juggernaut, they do come in handy, even though they're like really small increases. It all adds up. Soul magic, top 2, and the passives. And then I'm just going to go through these really quick. Fighters Guild, Mages Guild, Psijic Order, and Undaunted. Just make sure you unlock all the passives to them. The skills can vary based on your playstyle or your preference of skills. So if you don't want to unlock them all, you don't have to. I prefer myself, as a person who likes to play lots of different content, unlocking as much stuff as I can, because yes, this build might not look like it can tank much, but it can actually tank dungeons and both normal and veteran, especially the base game ones. The DLC ones, you can, with learning the mechanic. Like, once you know how the mechanics work of the dungeons, and you know like, if you play through them a lot and you know how they work, you can tank them even on normal and veteran. Hard mode's a different story with DLC dungeons, because they do get a lot more complicated on the hard mode with the final bosses, that it could be a little bit more challenging. So assault, yep, those skills and support, the barrier, purge, and mystic guard with the magic aid, and always get your passives unlocked for your race. With the Argonian, you do get Life Mender, which increases your healing done by 6%. You also get the Argonian Resistance, which increases your health by 1,000 and gives you disease resistance and makes you immune to disease status effect. And then Resourceful gives you the increased max magicka by 1,000, and whenever you drink a potion, you restore 4,000 health, magic, and stamina on top of what you also get. It's almost like a built-in synergy. Alchemy, medicinal use, and provisioning, gourmand, and connoisseur. Now, going over the skills we have on our bar. Starting with the first skill, we have Frost Reach. Now, this is a really good skill. It deals damage up front, it deals damage over time, and this is what's going to allow you to keep that weapon damage enchant active. And that's going to allow the next few skills to be better. So the next skill we have is Blood Sacrifice. This is your primary burst heal. This one, you sacrifice your own power to repair damaged flesh, healing you or an ally in front of you for X amount of health, but applying minor defile to yourself for 4 seconds, reducing your healing received in health recovery by 8%. It does consume a corpse, or consumes a corpse near you to heal a second target. So the more dead around you, the more, when you cast this, the more people you can heal. It's your primary burst heal, by the way. Next up, we have Skeletal Arcanus. Now, another one that I would suggest to swap out for Skeletal Arcanus is the Stalking Blast Bones, mainly because it will create a corpse really fast, and it allows your next ability to be even better in use. So Skeletal Arcanus deals, basically you summon a skeleton for 16 seconds, and it'll attack the closest enemy every 2 seconds for shock damage to them and all other enemies nearby. You get the idea. And it creates a corpse on death. I like it because of the shock damage, but Blast Bones would definitely probably be better for the next skill, which is Braided Tether. Siphon the last remnants of life from a corpse, healing for 19,000 health over 12 seconds to yourself, all allies around you, and all allies between you and the corpse. This ability scales up your highest offensive stat. It also increases your healing done by 3% for having it slotted. So that's why I would suggest Blast Bones, because again, you do the Blast Bones, oops, you summon it, it runs out, it blows up, and then you can tether it, which will heal you and your friends around you. It's a really good heal, and you got a long range on the tether too, so it's a really nice one to have. Alright, next skill we have is Inner Light. Now, this one, you summon a mote of Mage Light, revealing stealth enemies when you cast it, and it exposes enemies that are invisible for 3 seconds, and then while slotted, your max magic is increased by 5%, and you gain Major Prophecy, increasing your spell critical rating by 29, which is roughly about 12% crit. So the thing that's nice is that 5% actually gets boosted by another 2% because you have Magica, Might of the Guild, sorry. Which, or not Might of the Guild, sorry, Magica Controller. Increases your max Magica and Magic Recovery by 2% for each Mage Guild ability slotted. So you get an extra 2% to that 5, that's a 7% increase. Next skill we have is called Glacial Colossus. Now this one, basically, you summon this Flesh Colossus out of the ground and smashes the ground 3 times, dealing frost damage every hit. And then this final smash stuns enemies hit for 4 seconds. And it also applies minor vulnerability for 12 seconds, increasing the damage they take by 10%. Moving on to the back bar. Our first ability we have is Blockade of Frost. This basically puts down a wall of ice that lasts for 14 seconds. While it is up, it will be keeping your weakening enchant applied, reducing their spell damage. Remember this. And it will also put up a shield on your allies that absorbs projectiles for 7,500 damage. And it immobilizes, or chilled enemies in it can be immobilized. Next ability we have is Unnerving Boneyard. I love this ability. Basically, it deals frost damage over 10 seconds. It also applies Major Breach, and that reduces physical spell resist by 59.48. It also can consume a corpse to deal 50% more damage, and an ally standing in the graveyard can activate the synergy, dealing more frost damage and healing you for the damage done. Our next ability is our AoE heal. This is of our area of effect heal, and what this does is you release residual fragments of fallen souls at the target location, healing you and your allies for 8162 health. Consumes a corpse on cast to immediately remove 3 negative effects and continue to heal you and your allies for another 7,885 health over 5 seconds. And then on top of that, we also have our Intensive Mender. Now this one will also create a corpse on death, but it conjures a ghostly spirit to do your bidding and stay by your side for 8 seconds. The spirit heals you and or the lowest health ally around you every 2 seconds, restoring 9,330 health, which is really good. And then, of course, we do have that Inner Light again for the Max Magicka and the Major Prophecy. And our final skill is one that a lot of people don't use very much, and that is in the Alliance War support side. And this is going to give us 10% mag recovery when we're on the back bar, and that is Replenishing Barrier. This one, you invoke defensive tactics to protect yourself and nearby group members with wards that each absorb up to 3,800 or 38,000 health. Each time the ward dissolves, you restore 4 ultimate and 1,000 magicka. So it's a really good kind of, like I said, this is that I'll do it to keep you guys alive, but I want something in return kind of thing. And like a lot of these, it's got that more evil kind of healer presence, but at the same time it's got good healing, really good healing. So that's why I like it. So that's the skills. Now let's go ahead and jump over to the champion points. Starting with the red tree, we have 56 in the Ironclad. This is going to reduce your damage taken from direct damage attacks by 20%. 10 into Spell Shield, increasing your spell resistance by 1,003. And then over here we have 28 in the Light Armor Focus, increasing your physical resistance by 2542 while wearing 5 pieces of light armor. Excuse me. That's how we get that good balance, guys. And then we have 31 into Thick Skin. This reduces your damage taken from damage over time effects by 13%. 43 into Hardy, reducing your damage taken from physical poison, disease damage by 10%, and 43 into Elemental Defender, reducing Flame Frost, Shock, and magic damage by 10%. Moving on, we have 40 into Bastion. This increases the effectiveness of your damage shields by 16%. We also have 19 into Quick Recovery. This increases your healing received by 5%. And then moving on to the green tree, 40 into Warlord, reducing break free cost by 16%, 16 into Sprinter, reducing sprint cost by 10%, and 16 into Bashing Focus, reducing bash cost by 10%. Moving on to the middle tree here, we have 75 into Arcanist, increasing mag recovery by 14%, 43 into Tenacity, increasing mag and stamina of your fully charged heavy attacks by 10%. This applies to the extra 30% you get, which gives you a 40% return of resources on your heavy attacks. There is a flat line of resources you get, but I don't remember the exact amount. So next up, Tumbling, 40 points. Reduces dodge roll cost by 16%, and then 40 points into Shadow Ward, reducing block cost by 16%. Moving on to the blue tree, 43 into Blessed, increasing healing done by 10%. We have 56 into Elfborn, increasing critical damage and critical healing with Magicka abilities by 20%. 56 in Elemental Expert, increasing your Flame Frost, Shock, and magic damage by 12%. And then moving on over here, we have 35 in the Staff Expert. This increases your damage done with light heavy attacks for destruction and restoration staffs, as well as overload by 20%. 40 in the Master in Arms, reducing your damage or increasing your damage done with direct damage attacks by 16%. And then moving on over here, we have 40 in the Thaumaturge. This increases your damage over time by 16%. And that is it for the CP. Now, I am going to take this into a dungeon. I'm going to take it into the Depths of Malatar dungeon and show you guys what this build is like. Now, this is just to represent how the build would work if you were playing not only by yourself, but also in a group. It kind of just gives you this overall like understanding of like, oh, hey, this build does work. It does actually really well. Here's why. So... And I do, excuse me for the coughing this morning, guys. Woke up with a little bit of an itchy throat. Wasn't expecting to cough this much. I did take some cough syrup for it, but, you know, things happen. Alright. So, go ahead and get our wonderful buff up here. Our spirit. We're going to go ahead and drop our... You notice how I am doing some heavy attacks? I'm not, like, focused on doing as much damage per se, but more or less the heavy attacks. Thank you. That's all I wanted to do was get a little heal off. I'm gonna get my Mender up again. I'm gonna go ahead and drop that back there a ways. Got our Colossus we can pull out. And use some healing. Get a little bit more healing. And even if with that, even though it says like you get this loss of healing, it's not enough. Like you have so much healing with the Argonian and the fact that you have such a high spell damage that it doesn't matter. And just to show you guys, that's your spell damage right there, 34 something, but then you get the 350 when their health is below that, which doesn't show up there. Take this guy down. Now you notice how I sacrificed that immediately? I did that so I could get this heal up. This heal is an amazing heal, so... Drop some blast bones on this thing. Got Tether going again. Mender back up. Block. I'm gonna go ahead and do this. Blast bones again. Do the Tether. And this is how we're gonna pretty much stay alive most of the time, is that Tether. So I gotta watch how much damage I do to this guy, because if I do too much, it will literally, like... I'm gonna go ahead now. I'm gonna let this wear up. I'm gonna move over here. I'm gonna let him kill me. If I don't, I would fight him to the end and it would just take forever. Yeah. But that's pretty much how the build works. I mean, I know a lot of you that know my builds. I do a lot of testing with them to make sure everything works appropriately. I take them out in the open world. I take them up against world bosses. I kind of do everything with them to see where they fit the best. And for small group play, and even in some cases trial play, like this thing's a really good build. And again, I want to clarify this. Remember, the builds I release are just templates. They are not like you have to play them this way. If there's something about them you don't like, the skill setup, the traits, the mana stones, the enchants, or even the gear or the CP, you can change that stuff. It's just there as a guide that shows you, hey, you can play this way and it works. But that's pretty much it. I mean, I could go through this whole spiel about all this other stuff, but really it's not necessary. I think I covered enough. So you guys know what's coming next. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys want to see more videos by me, you can subscribe. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day. And this guy